G'day listeners, welcome to Barkarati, the sailing podcast. My name's Jordan Spencer and it's that time of the week where we get to hang out with some really cool sailors. But of course, I have to share the microphone with my two idiot mates. First off, let's welcome Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, Exalted One.
No BP. I think I know where he is, but we'll bring in the other bloke first.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Boyce.
He's done it again, hasn't he? I bet you he regrets the time between him and Far when they said, let's put water ballast in. And BP's gone, tell you what, I'll go glass it up from the inside.
Yeah, he's stuck in the tank.
He's stuck
again.
in the water ballast tank again.
So he's over in Singapore. He's over playing X2s, but he is actually just about to join us. We think he was just getting out of the taxi. And, you know, when we set a time, you've got to be on time. There's no mucking around with Barkarati. So if you're not here, you're not here. So he'll probably join in at some stage.
You do not delay a start, right? Because someone's late.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a great starter, is he? Port starboard starting, you know. Well, there's a big port starboard incident in the US, actually, that...
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I forgot to put that on the run sheet. Write that down. Speaking of getting started, our guest tonight is one that I think a lot of people are going to be really, really interested in this discussion. I certainly am. I'm very excited to hear this. Sailing is such a cool sport. You know, there's so many elements to it. You know, we all grow up sailing dinghies, but, you know, you get to play with sail shapes and rig design, and one of the things we all do as kids is sketch on our little bit of notepad. You know me, Bossy, I get my A4 bit of paper out and fold it up. And
A4 piece of paper.
All the
just
best.
Pinch it at the ends. And what do you got?
You got a yacht, right. You got.
Well, mine's folding in half.
So our guest was just showing some scratchings on his notepad. So our guest tonight is one of the most famous yacht designers in the world right now, producing some incredible boats. And we're very excited to have a bit of a chat to Mr. Mark Mills. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much, guys.
It's cool.
Oh, what an honour. And first of all, just for the listener, they can't see this, but you're sitting in your, let's call it your studio.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of half models.
Yeah.
You've got a, what's that photo of Alegre maybe?
The first Alegre, yeah. Really breezy.
You got some rolled up pieces of paper, which looks just perfect for a design studio. And a thinking chair. I love it.
That's right.
I love it.
I reckon just out of shot is a pottery wheel and a bit of pottery clay for wooing women. I think is that.
My missus would never put up with it.
So actually, just before we do get on, and this is kind of related, and it will be a question eventually, Mark, but in the 2005 Volvo Ocean Race, it was put out to the designers at the time, what's the best design anyone had ever seen? So we had Juan K, Russell Bowler, all those sorts of guys. So Russell Bowler, I think it was like the Evinrude 4 horsepower outboard engine, all aluminium. Like it was a really exceptional design for its time. I think Juan had some sort of a psychologist chair that you lay in that was covered with cowhide or anything. What would your greatest design achievement that you have ever seen, not your own, but what you would have ever seen outside of the yachting world?
Ooh. Can I have some runway on that? Can I come back to you with an idea?
Definitely. By the end of the show, we'll ask that again.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, give me a chance.
All right. Okay. So I think we have to start at the beginning for you, Mark, just to set the foundation for how you've got to where you are. How did sailing start for you, bud?
Oh, man. So I was born in the States. My parents moved to Ireland when I was about 12. I didn't know anybody there. They sent me off to boarding school. The first summer I come home and I think they sort of panicked and realized I'd never spent any time in in that town, in that house. I didn't know anybody there. And in the local paper, there was a tri-sailing advertisement from the Wicklow Sailing Club. And they signed me up without talking to me. Off I went into a mirror dinghy, and it really worked for me. It grabbed me at a time. I had previously really been interested in airplanes. I was sort of an airplane fanatic. And it really was the perfect segue across to something that I had shared a lot of the same design characteristics, but was more accessible. You know, it turned out it was something I could get my hands around. So that's how it started.
So we got to split off sailing here for a sec. You're a 12-year-old kid from the States, right? And you rock up in Ireland. How the hell was that culture shock for you when you first turned up? You know, like that must have been crazy.
I mean, it was the maximum possible difference. I grew up in San Francisco originally on Marina Boulevard, directly opposite the St. Francis Yacht Club. I used to grow up walking past the docks, but my parents had nothing to do with sailing. I had nothing to do with sailing.
Wow.
So it was all just color, you know, it didn't mean anything. But from liberal California in the 80s to Ireland in the 80s is a pretty major step. So yeah, I know it took a while. Some would say I've never quite made the adjustment.
It probably works better the other way, because in the US you always say, I'm Irish American, I'm Swedish American, I'm Australian American. No, you don't say Australian American.
Not many, no.
But can you say I'm Seppo Irish? Does that work?
Yeah. I don't even try to.
Yeah. It's interesting because where you know, that street, we all know it so well, you know, with all those houses straight across from St. Francis, you know, and you've got Golden Gate Yacht Club as well. So you've got lots of little boats and lots of action right there in front on that sort of main bay in San Fran where it all happened. So it must have sort of imprinted on your mind. I wonder if that sort of was part of the process.
I mean, I think so. I remember I went out in a J24 from the St. Francis once when I was probably 9 or 10. You know, I had a little bit, my parents knew people who sailed, but it certainly wasn't very, very immediate. It took Wicklow Sailing Club to make it work.
When you're living on that street, do your parents freak out? You know, like there's a lot of traffic going there in front of your house. Like,
oh yeah. You were real careful crossing the street. It was, we used to go across, like we literally were right across from that green patch in front of the St. Francis. Yeah. So I'd go across with a baseball and a bat and my dad in the evenings and throw a ball to each other. But yeah, crossing the street was the most dangerous bit.
Yeah. Or getting blown away while you're chasing the ball. Actually,
that reminds me, maybe BP could have gone there. He would have been a bit better on the port starboards. Just keeping an eye out.
Well, he's there next week. All right, so it started in the mirror, mate. When did the passion kick for you?
I mean, the thing is, I would then go to disappear back off to boarding school after the summer, and I would just be drawing, sketching like crazy on every bit of paper, you know, school books, everything, not really getting very much schoolwork done, but really getting into a combination of airplanes and boats, you know, whatever it was. And so I think that was really the sailing is a really important foundation, but it was just the time spent doodling and sketching and falling in love with, I don't know, whatever was hot at the time. I don't know if you remember, Marc Pajot had a big catamaran called Elf Aquitaine.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
I was just obsessed with it. I just would draw it, loved it, was super interested in it. And it's kind of been one of the themes of my career is to go back and end up doing a project with Mark. Was just a wonderful sort of closure of that loop. It's a small world sailing.
So were you always like a good sketcher, Mark, or it kind of came at a certain time? Like I grew up with kids who were good drawers at the time, but obviously to sketch Mark's boat is a different story. But was that was there a step that you saw? I
mean, the problem is you could say, am I a good sketcher? No, I'm probably not. There are some people who it's just artwork when they sketch. For me, I didn't put too much time into trying to make the art side of it, but I think it's really good at fleshing out your 3D grasp of objects. And I think it's one of the big obstacles in dealing with clients, for example, who don't work in a 3D world and find it hard to understand 2D drawings that are trying to represent 3D things. Or even kids trying to get into yacht design or any engineering subject. that sketching really is a useful tool, an important step to come to terms with how you turn something 3D in your head into a 2D drawing. So I enjoy it. I would say it's not artwork.
I mean, we made the joke at the start about the folded A4 pieces of paper, but, you know, that was always been something I do all the time. You know, I hold that bit of paper up and I sort of pinch the ends of different signs and try and, you know, then you got to work your rocker out. You don't quite get your rocker line right when you do.
It's hard on the rocker, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, that whole thing, you know, like I'm sitting there in class and they're doing calculus on the board and I'm holding up a bit of paper. You know, is that the same thing for you, sort of thing?
100%, and it explains my calculus scores. So yeah.
No one understands calculus. I think it was just made up during the plague or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so from that perspective, then you're self-driven because your parents had no interest in the sport. The one thing that does have to be said is for every yacht club that's listening out there, and we know a lot of you do, come and try sailing days. Obviously, have much bigger consequence than you realise. That they work. Go on.
One of my current sort of hobby horses is sailing as a sport. I think we're in trouble at the minute. Just generally, we're a declining sort of sector, and clubs are definitely declining. Average membership age is increasing. It's really a major problem. And yet still you see clubs that are sort of standoffish. The gate's shut. It's got a code. You can't get in. It doesn't invite people in. I absolutely think Try Sailing Days should be a core part of what we're doing as a sport. And we don't even seem to be scratching the surface of that yet.
Well, they definitely work. You can see Bicey. I'm looking at Bice because he's the Bice Commodore of his yacht club. And I did say that correctly, the Bice Commodore. And, you know, growing sailing is one of your big goals right now, and that's why Barcarati exists, to grow sailing. So come and try sailing. Bice, you got some thoughts there, mate?
No, I was just saying, like, as you were saying, Mark, it's such an instrumental part. There's so many other distractions out there at the moment, but there's also these barriers that we create. And I've been banging on about the closed gate thing for quite some time now, and I notice now, like, the two big yacht clubs, the Yacht Squadron in SA and the CYC in SA, the doors are open when the bar is open, which is cool. But the gate should be open when anyone could come in, just jump on a boat and go. And it's and we all got. I think we're pretty good at it in Oz with Try Sailing and all that sort of stuff. But shit, we can be a lot better, a whole lot better.
I think Ireland and the UK has a long way to go. I think a lot of people are aware it's an issue, but not many people really are figuring out how we're going to solve that. Yeah.
Well, we'll work on that. I think one way to solve it is just keep creating cool boats, which is
bloody cool boats,
which is what you're doing. So, when was the first thought where you thought, actually, you know what, I'm going to do this as a job? And what did your parents say?
Oh man, it was. I mean, I was so wrapped up in this drawing and sailing, and I was so in love with it that I didn't really have any other vision. I don't quite know how it was supposed to work out for me. And there was certainly a period, my parents really wanted me to go to university, and so I was sort of talked into going to university in the States, and I had a wonderful time and it was really good. But in Oregon, you're a long way away from sailboats, race boats, and like once every 2 months, my seahorse would show up, and it was like an absolute shot of oxygen that there was some connection to the. And I don't know how, for you guys, but for my generation, opening up that seahorse, and they'd have 20 pictures on one page from the Quarter-Ton Cup, just of deck layouts. How the runner went down and disappeared into a foot chock, and there was a fine tune under the foot chock, and then that sort of thing absolutely gripped me. I was in love with that. So after university, it was kind of hard. I wasn't very established on the sailing scene. I mean, I wasn't, I hadn't done a lot, and I didn't know anybody who was a yacht designer. It was quite a difficult place to be and of trying to figure out how am I going to get to do this without any obvious routes into it. And what I had done was started sailing in San Francisco quite a bit in the summers. And so I ended up after university, I bought a Moore 24, one of the greatest boats of all time still. And spent a year just sailing the Moore 24, doing as much racing as I could on the bay. And, you know, I turned into a reasonable bowman, and it was all good experience, meeting good people. And then got myself into the Southampton Institute course, went to Southampton after that. And like Southampton in 1990, whatever it was, pretty gray, dark place to be. And I'm wandering around thinking, it was like, here we go again. I've got this place on the course, but geez, Southampton, where do I start? So the first Friday night, I got the train out to the Hamble. Like I asked somebody, where's the sailing scene around here? Oh, it's, you know, Leamington. Oh, I can't get to Leamington. Where else? Oh, the Hamble. Okay, fine. Took the train out to the Hamble. I don't know if you know the train station there, but when I walked out of it, no station, just off the platform.
Saw a plane.
I could have. Literally didn't know whether to turn left or right. Yeah. Which direction is it to get? So I walked into the Hamble, down the high street, all the way to the bottom where the Southern is, and I could hear music, which it turns out was a square rigger, pumping music up the river. I actually thought, because it was low tide, I could get there up the river. That's how little I knew. Walked down the next morning after figuring out that was the key bit, and bumped into people dressing a rig. Asked, can I give you a hand? And they're like, yeah, okay, all right. And it was Led Pritchard putting together Yes. Which was probably the top IRC boat in the UK at the time.
Yeah.
And so I worked for them for a day, just trying to put the rig in the boat and get ready. And he said, you want to come sailing tomorrow? Hell yeah. And that literally my entire career could be traced to that point, because only the people that I met from getting on that boat, getting introduced to other people, really made it possible. And the funny thing was, it was one of those moments where the finger comes down out of the sky like the Sistine Chapel. I knew at the time, my God, this minute is pivotal to me.
Wow.
And so, for example, Peter Morton, Led introduced me to Peter Morton for the 94 Commodore's Cup, I guess it was at the time. He had Tram, and I got on with Morty. Morty turned out to be a major benefactor, a patron. I mean, just a wonderful builder of the sport in the UK generally, but for me personally, absolutely. And all of that just came from that one moment.
Wow. Special guest appearance, Brett Perry. Welcome, buddy.
Yeah, got to love those ferries.
Yeah, ferries as in boats.
Sorry I'm late. G'day, guys. How are you?
Welcome.
Yeah, well, he's out of the water ballast tank, so that's good.
Yep. No,
don't worry. Do not listen back to the start of this episode. By the way.
No. Well, okay. I'll be looking forward to not listening to it.
All right. So, Mark, we want to get into the interesting thing is your first. I mean, obvious that I think we have to ask the first boat you designed getting built. Getting built. That must have been amazing.
I was sorry. Apologies for the long workaround to that. That's where I was going with that. So
good.
I ended up. I've been quite involved with some IMS stuff, and I was helping the Irish Admiral's Cup team in '95, I guess it was, the ILC 40 for that, trying to get them rated under IMS, and I wanted to sail with them. And so it had a group of really good people on board, Steve Hales, Paul Stambridge, it was a good group. And they were well above my level in sailing, but I was sort of trying to leverage everything I had to get on the boat. And that was another real building experience for me. And out of that came a kind of an odd phone call from a couple of guys in Dublin, one of which you may know, David Hart. Hardy is a well-known Irish sailor. But Garrett Connolly, who had a little boat building business, and they had a client who wanted a 30-footer. And so Peter Beamish, I mean, what would induce a chap to spend a really serious amount of money, more than a house at the time, on some kid's first ever yacht design? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But luckily, Peter was game for it, and we produced a boat called Aztec, which was, outstandingly successful, but perhaps more by luck than judgment, and really was a great platform for me to build on.
Wow. But just seeing that first thing being built, the first one being built like that, I would have wet my pants with excitement, I reckon it'd be hard not to, wouldn't it?
I'm sure I did. It's kind of surreal, isn't it? At that age, you're so arrogant. You think well, this is what I'm here for. It's of course it's natural. This is how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
It's only in retrospect you think, holy God, how much luck is involved in these things happening.
So obviously that kind of kick-started things from a design point of view. What did you just become completely overwhelmed, busy building a studio, or you just kind of grab the old A4 piece of paper and did a few sketches?
I mean, it worked out well for me because I was still trying to race a lot at the time. I was commuting to the UK pretty much every weekend. So it'd be winter series, spring series, all the racing in the summer, Commodore's Cup, whatever was on, Cows Week. And at the time, I think the early years were sort of a sequence of one good project every 2 years. And I think this is a message to anybody who wants to get into yacht design is, A, it's super hard. I think you need to have some advantages in your favor if you're going to make it work. And part of that is having to be able to survive these long lulls where you're either out of fashion or nobody's heard of you, or, you just have to be able to sit there and get through the quiet periods. And so that probably was true until about 2004 or 5 before we really started getting busy as a full-time occupation.
Uh-huh. Do you remember the boat that do you have a boat that really you think launched you, where everyone's just gone, okay, now I'm famous sort of thing?
Concubine.
I think it goes in steps.
Sorry, mate?
It goes in steps, doesn't it? You could look at the DK46, which I think was 2002.
Yep.
Like the 46s are still winning around the world, which
Yes.
it's an unbelievable evergreen. I don't, who knows what makes that work. But so the 46 sort of definitely got us up a level. And then a couple of years later, we did a 40-footer called Tiamat with Vision Yachts and Cows. Tiamat was very successful. It led on to a boat called Mariner's Cove. And between the two of them, they were sort of the dominant IRC 40s of their generation. They were really successful. That helped a lot. Then we got Mini-Maxi with Andy Soriano, the Alegre. That turned into the 72 Alegre project, which ended up as a world champion. That, I think, induced Luca Bassani of Wally Yachts to give me a call to say he'd like to put me forward, along with some other designers, to a client who eventually did Tango. There's more than one step to get there, I think.
That's amazing.
Do you find, Mark, that with your designs, you bring an element of one boat to another and another boat to another, and you sort of evolve that way? Is it always just a complete blank canvas?
I mean, I'm sure you can't not be influenced by what has been in your head, but I try and bring a blank piece of paper every time, and I think that sort of shows because there's perhaps not too much thematic consistency between the various projects we've done over the years. I'm not sure you could look at them and say, oh, that's clearly a Mark Mills boat, except maybe in the 2010s with a string of production IRC boats. But and I kind of like that. I kind of feel like the client is looking for something what they want, as opposed to me pushing what I want them to have. And so
it's definitely a design brief that gives you the canvas, and you work from that.
I think so for me, yeah. And
what about the rules? I mean, is that something you've got a real close eye on in terms of what shapes you're working on? Because that's always, from experience as well, it's something we all have to think about. You can't just go out and do a boat that just performs one way or another. It's got to be thought about.
Yeah, but and for sure, 100%. With me in particular, in the previous decade, it was all IRC. And I'm pretty involved in that, and I liked IRC. It's just in terms of its simplicity. So that was, I thought, a good fit. I think IRC is less strong now, but ORC, there was having another sort of strong surge at the minute. I was just on a research associate call with the ORC last night, so I'm now involved in that. But the ironic thing is, you look at boats like the Cape 31, where we said absolutely at the outset that there is no rating influence on this. If there was, it would only spoil the boat. Don't go near it, and don't ask. It's never going to do well under IRC. And out it pops, and it seems to do very well under IRC. So,
until next year.
Yeah, exactly right. Very possibly.
Until all 22 of them in the UK win every race.
I think you have to be pretty good to get it to go under IRC. So I'm not worried about all 22 of them doing it.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic story in itself, isn't it?
again, just so unpredictable. The phone rings. I'm driving in Italy somewhere, and the phone rings, and it's Irvin Laidlaw, Lord Laidlaw, saying, "I'd like to do a 30-footer."
Yeah,
fantastic. There you go.
Well, it's not necessarily a segue, but hey, mate, we need to talk about the Cape 31.
Yes.
Absolute success of it. How many boats did you say there? 21 have been built. How many?
The UK's got over 20. I think Hull 30-something is just left the factory, 36, 37. So
it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
We're cracking on, yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we you give us a bit of a history of that project. So Irvin gives you a call. When was that? 2018, 19, 20? A
little earlier, 2017. Yeah. And he has a fabulous estate in just outside Cape Town, and he spends a chunk of the year there, and he really enjoys his sailing there. And I think he had a vision really to try and do something for the marine industry in Cape Town and to encourage youth sailing in the Royal Cape Yacht Club. It really was a philanthropic sort of thing for him, that let's do one design that works well in Cape Town, and I'll cover the first 5, for example, no matter what happens, and hopefully produce a platform on which they can get kids out sailing and I think lift the standard of race boat in South Africa, bring it into a modern era. As it turned out, he never needed to go further than the first one, because he was immediately finding buyers in South Africa, and so the Cape fleet there sort of got to 12 or 13 boats, I think, in the first couple of years. And then it was just a question of, could it break out of Cape Town? So Mike Bartholomew, you may know his son Dave Bartholomew, who's running the class now in the UK. They got a boat, brought it up to the UK. Dave's mate, Dave Sweet, got on the boat, really fell in love with it. Dave Sweet's quite a persuasive character, and really I think between the two of them, the two Daves have been responsible for the success of the class since then.
Oh, it's huge.
Interesting, just for your benefit, Mark, it's we get a lot of emails at Barkarati, and on emails is a generic term for every social media platform. And one of our listeners, Ed Nayland, sent a message to us a few weeks ago saying, "What do you guys think of the Cape 31s?" And so, what should he think of the Cape 31s if somebody asked you that question? Are they a good boat?
I mean, you're asking a proud parent. What am I going to say? But again, there's things as a designer. I think the public are have a belief that the designer has more control over the outcome of these things than they actually do. It requires so many factors to come together to make it work. The boat's got to get built reasonably well. It's certainly got to get built down to weight, and that was an issue with the previous 30-foot one design I'd done, which was the CNC 30. It just didn't have the sort of builder consistency that it needed, or class consistency. The class never really formed, and it let people do all sorts of stupid, expensive things that spoiled the class. And so it needs good class structure. You've got to have owners who are willing to put the foot down and say, we're not putting hydraulic mast jacks under the mast. It's just stupid. Because there's always people who want to do everything. Can we put a kelp cutter on the rudder? Seriously, in a 31-foot one design? No, you can't. And it needs all those factors together to work. Consistent builder, good class structure. The boat itself has to be pretty good. The fact that it happens to win under IRC, or at least be able to win under IRC, I think really helped provide the platform on which the one design aspect could grow. Had any one or two of those things not happened, it wouldn't be the success it is.
I think for those sorts of rules, like when someone asks for a kelp cutter, I'm all for saying yes to things, but you just got to add a little dimension to it. So what I would have said is yes, but the kelp cutter has to be human with a pair of scissors, and they have to stay attached to the rudder the whole time in the water.
Hold him by his ankles and just set it down. But
I was waiting for
it. There's always room for a ginger on board, I guess.
We found a new role. Jay.
Probably a good time to just do a little shout out to Uwe, who was instrumental in the building of the boats, who left us a couple of years ago. I mentioned it on the show back when he did depart us. But I want to hear about this. What's it called? Is it the Nations Cup or whatever it is, or the Invitational where people come to Cape Town?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, just to echo, Uwe Jasperson was just a wonderful man. He was just a lovely friend, and to lose him at that period in the class's development was, just awful on a personal and a class level. It was such a shame. The Invitational Cup, this was another one of Irvin's initiatives to try and spread the word, get people to come down and discover Cape Town, discover how good the sailing was. Discovering the boats was almost an incidental factor there, but it really did turn into a very useful tool for spreading the word. So Morty brought down a group and won the Invitational one year. I think that was really helpful. It actually, in my view, is something they should persist with, just because it does wonders for the club, the class, the town, everything about it. They should go back to running that.
I concur, and I'll 100%. When it was first floated with his name escapes me. It'll come back to me, a bit like your original question, but we'll get to it at the end of the show. But the idea of the Invitational, like you say, introduces people into South Africa. They come down, they do some racing, they go on a wine tour. On the lay day, they come back, they do a whole heap of racing, and it's always great racing on Table Bay. At the time, that promoted the class pretty well. And I guess what we're seeing now, they're reaping the benefits, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But I think you're right. It needs the whole package. It's got to be fun to go down and do. It's got to have other attractions, and Cape Town obviously has that in spades.
I think a few of the Cape 31s are about to show up in Oz tours, from what I understand. Did you design? They're kind of well known for having a bit of a bow up attitude. Was that something you designed into the boat?
Yes, for sure. And I think, again, if you're familiar with the CNC 30 that preceded it, for various reasons, it was not a bow up sort of boat. Yeah. And that had to do with basically the brief for that boat was it's an East Coast of the US boat for the CNC 30, and it can never be slower than a Mum 30. Now, in light medium, Mum 30 is a pretty quick little boat. Yep. And so we ended up really having to over-focus on that light medium end, and it ended up in a big breeze, perhaps not being as bow up as we'd like. It was a great opportunity with the 31 to sort of build on what we'd learned there. Again, having sailed a lot in San Francisco, I was ready for a boat that was going to do better and bigger breeze. And to give a shout out to Irvin Laidlaw, my original suggestion had a bit less sail area. And he pulled me up and he said, there are times here where it's not that breezy. And we can't have this thing be sticky when it is 8 to 10. Okay, that's good input. I'll add a bit of sail area, and I think it really made the boat work. Yeah. Because right now it does it in everything. It's not bad in the light. It's great in a breeze. It reaches well. It goes upwind great. That little bit of extra sail area really made it work.
It does occasionally get windy in San Francisco.
Yeah. Once in a while, yeah.
Well,
every day in the summer about
I was going to say, yeah. Monday, Tuesday. Bit of breeze on Friday.
I'm interested, another one of your designs that sort of went down the one design path and is really strict in the one design, but was sort of motivated by, it's the opposite coast, motivated by a club, was the IC37, which was the New York Yacht Club boat. Go on. I just want
to... an amazing opportunity to do one of the New York Yacht Club's one design classes. Yeah. I mean, as a designer, you sort of think, gosh, if I do nothing else, I've at least done that. But it was interesting. Our first discussion with them was along the lines of the Cape 31's are also a little boat. Why don't we do a slightly bigger version of that? And that absolutely was not what their brief was. Their brief was, we want the widest, most inclusive possible class here to be bringing in all ages. We'd like to see older, people in their 60s and 70s enjoying sailing the boats.
Sorry. I just had a little laugh there.
I know where you're going.
So their brief was the widest, most inclusive class.
You laugh.
How about their yacht club?
I'm not getting into the politics of it, but I think they were spot on, Nick. Because
I 100% agree.
What we were talking about earlier about declining participation, they are absolutely aware of, and they 100% saw this class as an opportunity to start trying to address that. And so I think gender representation as well was a huge thing for them. We really need to get as many people of all ages and genders and everything out on these boats. And so they can't be too extreme. They've absolutely got to be reasonably, predictable, nice boats to sail. And so when I talk to people about this who say, oh, it's not as fun as the Cape 31, why is that? I say, it's not about the boat. It's about the class.
Yeah.
And everybody who's been and done the Rolex Invitational event on them absolutely gets it then at that point. Oh, it's an amazing class. The racing. And so in that case, I see it more like the next generation of the FAR 40.
Yeah.
Is the FAR 40 screaming off downwind at 28 knots? That's not what it did.
No.
It did incredible fleet racing. Yeah. And I think the IC37 is its heir.
Yeah. The thing for you, I reckon where you've got to, when I look through your designs on your website, you've got a bunch of designs which I reckon are the hardest things to pull off, which is the boat that has cruising capability and racing capability. As you get older, you're less inclined to hang over the rail and lean as hard as possible, and you think about taking your bride off and having a nice cruise and all that sort of stuff. You want to do multiple things with the boat. If someone comes to you with a design like that, do you just go, oh, this is too hard, or, I can't wait to do that, or, do you focus more to the racing, or is it all client-driven?
To be fair, it used to be easier to do than it is now. Rating rules used to give more credit, and it was easier to put more stuff in the boat and get away with it. And so, I mean, IOC 10, 12 years ago was really supportive of, in fact, over supportive of displacement. So you could pretty much do whatever you like inside the boat. And so we did a lot of 40 footers, King 40, the MAT MAT-12, all sorts of boats that were really genuine dual purpose racer cruisers. And they had decent interiors and a head and all that stuff. And I enjoyed doing those boats, but it was really because the rating rule laid the ground for that to be possible. Yeah. IOC came under huge pressure about 10 little more years ago, and people screaming, why am I paying for all this interior? I'm never going to use it. It's cobblers. I just want a race boat. Why won't my lightweight race boat be allowed? And finally, they sort of had to accommodate that. And the problem was that when you look at the logic of it, it's sort of inevitable that if you allow lighter weight race boats to succeed, then you start getting into an arms race where the lightest weight race boat succeeds the most, and the lightest weight race boat costs the most money. And so now you're busy losing the bottom of the pyramid as everybody without money drops out the bottom. Yeah. And only finally, ultimately, one bloke at the top has got the winning race boat and nobody else wants to play. Yeah. And I think we all know what campaign that is. And that's a real problem.
No
so when
comment.
People come to me now saying, I'd like a dual purpose race boat, I'd love to do it. I'd absolutely would. Unfortunately, in IRC, certainly, it's just not as easy to do as it used to be. I think one standout for me was a boat called Super Nikka, which was for an Italian client, young, has a young family. He races race cars, Le Mans cars, a cool, dynamic guy who wanted to win Rolexes, but also was going to take his family cruising for a fortnight every year. And this 62-footer we did, Super Nikka, turned out to be a huge success at both. When you can do it, when you can make it work, when the builder can put an interior in the boat without it compromising the design, then it's wonderful. It's just not easy.
Did you put we won't ask about this boat yet, but just have to ask, did you put an interior in Flying Nikka?
Of course. Have you seen the insides?
We'll come to that.
An interior wheeler, not necessarily the owner.
Yeah. I've got to say, there's a retro design on your site, a 72-footer or something. I don't think it got built in the end, but I like that sort of stuff at the moment. I don't know why, but I find that sort of modern retro thing is
kind of goes with the age, mate.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, just roll with it.
It's middle age, Jordan. Just accept it.
You bastard.
Because that happened to me. That's why I drew that 70. I was looking at a Frere's design called Bolero. I think he did it for the manager, Duran's manager at the time.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what a classic. The little simple coach roof. I love a lot of the Frere's designs from that period. And so I think it was one of those lulls in the business. I had nothing else to do, so drew that. And it did actually hit a bit of a chord. So we have a 41-foot development of it being built in Slovenia at the moment for an American client. So
perfect.
I haven't put anything out about it yet, but it's going to launch in the next couple of months, and so we'll probably
out now. It's out now. It's out now.
It's out now. Yeah.
That's a good size for that sort of boat, and the Yanks love that sort of boat as well too. They do it well.
That East Coast style day sailor look, absolutely. Yep.
They do it well.
Mark, you touched on it a second ago, how you really like the Frere's designs, of the period, and do you have designers that you sort of look at and go, I like that, and I mean everyone does. We all know that we like a certain part of a boat, but not a certain part of a boat. Do you do that with designers and look and go, I really like that?
So when I was growing up, FAR was just coming into the ascendancy, and all through the period where I was in university and the institute and trying to, make a mark on the thing, the FAR office were just dominating, and rightly so. When you looked at their success rate, their ability to take a whole new rule that nobody had done anything to, and produce an incredibly successful first boat to it. Normally, other designers, like their first boat is sort of a memory of their previous successes in another rule. And it takes most people time to get into really getting the right solution. And the FAR office was just like their first Volvo 60 looked like more or less the last Volvo 60. You think of Gaucho, one of the earliest IMS boats. Look, it was hugely successful for a decade of IMS. And I really, everything they did, I at the time was very impressed by. But you look at Frere's, if you're looking for style, that ability to draw a shear line, and I still look at Rebecca, the big boat, and
I guess that's my point. My point is, you look at different designers; they have little niches, if you like. There's something in each design that you can go, yep, that's a FAR, or yep, that's a Frere's, or that's a, whatever what design might be. And I guess with you, we all know, definitely I can sort of go, yep, there's a Mills boat.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm not sure that I would have thought it was that strong with me. But, absolutely, 100%. And I think some designers, there's more than just some bits of it they get right. Some designers really, you end up jealous. You just say, gosh, I wish I could draw that.
Mark, tell us, is there a bit of a designers union here? Yeah. So you all go to the Maxi Worlds. So yourself, Juan, Manny, you all kind of hang out with each other, or
not really? Juan was in my class at the institute, so we know each other reasonably well. So whenever I see him, we say hello.
So Manny was a few years before you guys, was he?
Behind me, I would say, younger than us.
Oh, behind, copy. Yeah.
But one of the things I like, I'm sit on the RORC technical committee, and one of the great things about the technical committee meetings is that it's kind of an industry professionals meetup for a curry a couple of times a year. But
that's all it is.
I'll have the Tiger Lager thing.
Exactly right. But it turns out we're all working in our little silos, and we're all really wanting the opportunity to talk to each other about stuff where you're like, that's my problem too, or why haven't they worked on this? Or it's really very positive when you do get to meet. So
it's a great question, isn't it? I think about that. I wonder how much you actually do think about other designers, because it must be quite competitive. Well, it is competitive.
So it's hugely competitive. One of the things I would say though is, for many, many years I was sure that there was a secret. I was going to work in the industry really hard and learn and try and get clients until somebody finally told me what the secret was, and then I too could be successful. Yeah. And it turns out there is no secret. Right. And half of this is marketing. At any one time, one of us is successful purely on a marketing basis, nothing to do with the inherent strengths of their particular design at the moment. And I'm sure that's true for me as much as anybody else. And we're all just hacking away in our corner trying to make it work, and sometimes it works.
Nah. No, there's an Illuminati controlling the world of yacht design.
No, I deny that.
A cable of powerful backdoor. The question then has to become, based on that, and it's almost like the question Bicey asked you first that you've got some runway on. Is there a boat that's not yours that you think is the one? You know, you've mentioned a few, and I'm just, what boat jumps out at you? Or do you need another runway?
Oh, I think I read an article about this, by the way.
Well, there was a Yachting World where they asked you, and I put up the Mum 30.
Yeah.
Not for me, because I look at the Mum 30 and I think that's the most stunning yacht design in and of itself. But as a class, for what it did, it blew open the doors on all of the old inline rigs with runners, cobblers, all of that stuff, non-overlapping jibs, standing backstay, swept spreaders, lightweight. What a boat. I mean, and it turned into what a class. But I could have said the Far 40 in a similar way. Just the Mum 30 is a little bit purer. But, oh, man, I mean, part of it is there was a Frere's day sailor called Tom Tit.
Yes.
Way back in the day. And it was stunning, but again, I think maybe I really like simplicity. But if I see a boat that really does what it's trying to do, but in the simplest way possible, that has a certain draw for me. Those Frere's designs that are really elegant and simple, those sort of things grab me. There's never just one boat. And I think that's why people like yachts and people like yacht design. There's just this huge depth and history of these things to go back and look at. So
before we head towards Flying Nikka, because I know it's going to come up in a second.
Fuck! You've just stole my thunder. Thanks very much.
And he had a better segue than
Didn't you see me put my finger up?
Oh, sorry. No, I want to ask you one thing, Mark. If you got given a complete open checkbook and a complete open canvas, where would you go? Would you go something sort of classic, or would you go full hardcore racing? Where's your absolute passion lie?
Oh, I'd probably try and do a big classic retro-styled day sailery 100 and...
There you go.
Racing boat.
Something. No, but I mean... I'd really like to do something with style. And I think that's one of the shames when IRC moved away from supporting dual-purpose boats. When you did dual-purpose cruiser races, they had to look good. You had to do coamings and cockpits and seats and everything that worked in a way that was attractive. And now with race boats, it's pretty flat sheer, pretty cambered deck, no coach roof. It's a cool look. I really like it, but there's only so far you can go with it. And my one claim here is that I think the ramp deck throws a little bit of a variable in there that makes it more interesting, but what else can you do? There's not a lot of space there. For me, and I think there is a segue here into Flying Nikka, I actually think that the constraints of a project are what give it interest. Having to work within limitations are what force you to get creative and produce something.
That's I like that. I like that as a philosophy. I think that is very interesting. You look at the TPs, the box rule sort of idea. You all end up in a little corner, very tightly crammed into a corner because the designers take it to the edge.
And that's the pyramid again, isn't it? It's how many years of development. You're all working towards the top of the pyramid. And at the moment, you'd say the 52 is sort of plateaued, probably in design terms. And the class has done a good job. They'll open up something more draft, more rig height or something now, and it'll
make everyone spend some more money.
And I think at the moment that's the owner's dilemma, isn't it? Okay, well, we're all going to spend the same amount of money, and then we're all going to have the same deltas between us on the race course. Why would you? So
that's it.
So what do you? Bossy, do you want to do it?
No, you're right.
No, he's stuffed me.
I've
got all my notes here.
The toys are out
about
of the
lead into Flying Nikka, and then just stole my thunder. Anyway. Tell us, Mark.
What do you think about
the ramp design? Talking about all the other things. You've designed this boat, that now literally flies.
Yep.
We often give this phrase. Well, we used to do it in the boatyard when something good happens. We say, "Oh, that's a ball tightener." The first time that boat flew,
That was a ball tightener.
Was that a ball tightener?
Yeah, but you got to start properly, boss. You don't start. Oh, it's a ball tightener.
No,
you got to give it.
I've lost my mojo. A little bit.
I was in a taxi on my way to the airport. So I wasn't there.
Devastating.
It was so light. The first day we floated the boat, it was so light that I was out in the rib. They were going through these various, like everyone was very careful. We're not going to exceed 8 knots. And we're going to check everything. Then we're going to go to 10 knots. We're going to do 10 knots.
Next thing you know, it's 20 knots, full speed.
but this was the thing. There wasn't enough breeze. And in the end, it was like we ticked off all the boxes and structures and stuff. And it was like, I've got a 2:00 flight. I'm out of here. Take me home. And so jump in a taxi, head to the airport. And my phone kicks off with videos of this thing foiling. Wow. And it's like, my God, what does it take after all that effort to suddenly miss it? So it was a bull tightener, but at a distance. You know, it was,
in a taxi.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back then. How this whole program, you had Super Nikka, like super cool guy, and then he just saw the cut boats and said, do it for me. Make it happen, Mark? Or
yeah, with Super Nikka, he had won, I think, Maxi Worlds 4 out of the 5 times he'd done it. And it turned out on the one he missed, the box filling up the bow thruster hole had dropped out and nobody realized it. So, you know, he really did well with the boat and said to me, right, what are we going to do next? And so, I was suggesting sort of IRC 70s, like let's compete with the Maxi72s, but at less budget or, you know, more offshore oriented and that sort of thing. And he was like, yeah, that's really great. But, and Persico came out with this 69F and he signed up for 2 of them so that he could take some of his core group with him to go foiling on those. And after a few weeks of that, he was just absolutely hooked. And so after, you know, they basically got a phone call saying, can we do something offshore like this? Can we do a Girali on one of, you know, with a foiling version of one of these? Let me go look. I'll get straight back to you. So that's what that
3 seconds later. Yep.
He loves
that's a bull
high
tighten.
performance. He loves speed. He loves high performance. You know, again, he races Le Mans in prototypes. He's really, and I think it was one of the steps that allowed us to have confidence that he was a good client for this was in terms of driving. It's not like, you know, somebody who doesn't have any experience with fast responses and that sort of thing. So he was the right client, perfect client for that.
It's super cool. So for those who haven't spotted yet, there's still a keel on that boat, whereas the America's Cup boats just have the foils that pop up on the side because obviously where that boat, the med can be quite light. So sometimes I think the design concept is in the light winds, it sails as a keel boat and those 2 foils stick up in the air. It's like the Karate Kid, you know, doing that sort of pose.
The grasshopper. The keel is a requirement. His brief was the boat has to be a bona fide entrant in a Category 3 offshore special regs race.
Yeah.
So we have to pass like every other boat that enters that race has to pass. And so part of that is a stability requirement, the sticks requirement, and it actually, especially for movable appendage boats, is very complicated. And so that was one of the hardest bits of the whole design was trying to get, I think there's 7 or 8 or 9 different sticks tests that you have to all pass. And it was incredibly fine getting through all of these various tests on the positive side. So the keel is there to give us that Category 3 entry. It turns out it actually plays a really major role in changing the nature of the boat compared to the AC75s, which I think are very dynamic, very fast response. You know, they can be quite scary.
Yeah, but it's tempered.
Now, we haven't been out in more than 15 or 16 knots. It's always been reasonably flat water. So there's a lot of learning curve left for us to go through. But my feeling so far is that this is a much more accessible platform. This is not a threatening way to go sailing at high speed. So if that turns out to be true as the wave height builds and the wind speed increases, and for sure at the top end of the wind speed, it's going to get, I think, pretty brisk. But I think the keel actually plays a huge role in making it more easier to control.
It should slow its top end speed down a little bit too, because of drag,
sure.
I guess.
Do you have a way to jettison the keel just to really try and hit that top end speed?
Pull the release and out it pops.
Without taking the rudder out at the same time?
No, I was just going to say, boss, the guy cutting the weed on the rudder can just grab it as it goes past. And
with his scissors. The ginger.
So the water intake for the engine is coming up to the bulb. So
I actually had that question because I saw the boat flying and I've seen water coming out the exhaust.
Yep.
So it literally open 60 style.
Yeah.
So it's coming up the front of the fin.
Yeah. So actually, we're doing it through the underside of the bulb. You could do it without a fin. You'd probably end up having to have some sort of stub fin in there anyway, just to provide the water. Although, I mean, you could do a new set of arms that tried to pick it up on each arm and blah, blah, blah. Although I actually think this is the better solution. Yeah. So you could try and do it without a bulb for a record-breaking effort or something. But
did you look into battery as opposed to
we
generators and stuff?
Yeah, the problem here is the owner's brief is specifically for offshore sailing. He just doing a Maxi World stay around the islands is also going to happen, but that's not his core brief. Sure. So he's absolutely expecting to do 36 hours, and
wow.
This turns into one of those interesting sort of questions.
36 hours? Mate, it's 36 hours for a 50-footer. It's like 12 hours for that.
Yeah. But this is just a fast 60-footer in under 7 knots of breeze. When you're in full displacement mode, you're there for a while.
Yeah.
But if you really get, kick it off, a Juralia suddenly becomes a 6 or a 7 or an 8-hour race, then it's not a problem. So
I've got to ask the obvious question, though. In the America's Cup, we saw that, we know the Italian characteristics and, they look cool. The Italians go out, they always look a lot better than everyone. They don't do anything that's going to make them look uncool. And so the Italian team in the America's Cup didn't deign to do anything tactless like run across the boat. Obviously that wasn't cool. Is that the same for the Flying Nikka? Like no one's running across the boat. We're just all sitting in our little spots and looking good?
Yes, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. If you're going to run across the boat, you end up not being able to do anything for an end plate for the main. And I have to say so we worked a lot on cockpit configuration and rig, all these. That's the nice thing about the flying boats is everything's connected to everything else. And it's a really organic. You have to really come up with a complete solution. Like the side tanks on the boat are really there to provide the stability for this Styx stability test at 90 degrees. So everything about the boat is there for some reason, and you're trying to make it work with everything else. If it was an open cockpit, you wouldn't be able to end plate the main very effectively. And so what we decided to do was try and keep the aero benefits of keeping the one-piece foredeck running all the way through the boat out to the transom. And underneath is a tunnel at the front. And our original vision was for 5 crew, one driver at the front who alternates, right? He slides through the tunnel if it's breezy, or he just steps up and around the front of the mast if it's not. And then behind him would be the jib trimmer on the leeward side, the main trimmer on the windward side, and then behind him would be halyards, tactics, all the other stuff that they need to think about, main sheet. They actually, I think, are going to sail it with 6, which is just 2 drivers and alternate whichever tack you're on, the guy to weather is driving. It turns out from the sailing we did, you could probably sail it with 3.
Well, you're not changing sails, for one. So halyards, he's off.
There's a couple of
see you later, lead pusher.
Actually, we need to put the ganger on to cut the weed. So that he's back on.
Righto. Yep.
I love it.
No, you're right, Mark. And just
hang on. Could you get it? Could you get it one more off? So you could sail it with 3. Could you get it down to 2 and do double-handed ocean racing?
Perfect. Great idea. Yeah.
Here we go.
Can you imagine?
Sydney Hobart.
Sydney Hobart. Here we go.
Sydney Hobart in an afternoon.
Cat 2 and above is never going to work. No.
It's so exciting, isn't it? Like it must be, as a designer, you must be just sitting there just going, I'm so lucky to be working at this time, like it's like transition times are great times.
And I mean, in a way, I just feel like luck is kind of the thing that's worked for me. Better to be lucky than good.
The luck of the Irish.
When you look at the opportunities that came along to do a WallyCento, to do a New York Yacht Club One design, to do a one design for Irvin Laidlaw, to do a flying boat, it's if you were setting out to try and make those things happen, it probably wouldn't work.
I think you make that yourself. You push yourself.
Okay, sure.
You drive it. You've achieved what you've achieved because of, there's no question there.
Sure, but yeah, I'm just convinced luck plays a major role in this. But the other thing, when you were saying as a designer, this is sort of my boilerplate bit here, where I especially in the flying boat project. It takes a village to raise one of these things. It absolutely was a large group effort on the design side, of which with something that's complex, especially with my not having had any foiling experience before, you really end up as a design manager almost for part of the time.
Right.
I was still doing hull shapes, but in terms of arm structure, shape, wing shape, elevator, all that stuff, it really took a huge group. And so if you guys know the K&D Marine guys...
Yeah. Dimitri, yep.
Dimitri and Roland, who sort of are the co-designers for this. They just bring a huge amount of technical, especially CFD experience and VPP experience. But Nat Shaver, now with Ineos, did the lifting foils design and arms was really great for that. Tiha Wynn, I don't know if you know Winnie, but he was the mechanical engineer for those complex parts for Luna Rossa. Now with Ineos, did the complicated mechanical bits for us. You really almost couldn't do it without the support of people who know how to do it, if you know what I mean. There's such unique little solutions. It really took a wide group of people to make this work.
Speaking of which cup team you're joining, Mark?
Yeah.
We saw the Brits announce this week.
Yeah.
With all 81 of them?
Yeah, Jesus. Bloody hell, my computer ran out of battery just scrolling through them.
I think half of that, though, is apparently there's an awful lot of Mercedes F1 input. The structure of the team requires the F1 guys to be involved at every stage, and we'll have to see if that works or...
Well, I think it's part of the budget limitations, right? So if you have an F1 team, if you have an F1 team partnership, half of that research R&D goes into their budget, not yours.
Yeah. There seems to be some sort of cap control going on. Yeah.
Well, what it is there is a cap on Formula One spend now, so they can do research outside of the Formula One cap and do it with America's Cup teams.
That's it. That's my point. Yeah.
That's how they're doing it. That's what's going on.
Well, we've talked about it internally, and I think we're all really respect the TNZ design team model, which is keep it small. Don't try and look under every rock. In fact, it's almost a warning to me when you get people talking to you about projects. We're going to investigate under every stone. There isn't enough time or money ever to do that. It's not a successful model. It sounds cool. It sounds F1. It's not really the way things work. And it's much better to do the TNZ route of just focus, pick the route that you think is likely to be the most beneficial, and go pursue that really single-mindedly. And I'm sure that explains part of TNZ's success to date on smaller budgets is they just keep a focus.
Okay.
Yep. No, good bunch of blokes, good nation, good sailors, and no bullshit. That's probably the easiest thing.
No dickhead
I have to say, I don't see myself fitting into an America's Cup team, so I'm not sure it really has all that much appeal. But
right. So, before we get to Bicey's question, where do you go from here, mate? What's next?
I don't know. I got to mow the lawn. It's getting out of hand.
That's a good answer.
But that is the life of a yacht designer. If there isn't anything next necessarily, and we'll just wait and see what fills in. We've got this 41 building in Slovenia. Looking forward to seeing that launch. We've got the MAT 1220 40-footer being built in Turkey. I think there's 4. Looking forward to seeing that. Cape 31 stuff is ongoing. We're always trying to help them sell boats and build the fleet. Hoping to crack the US this year and really get some boats into the US for a Key West 2023 class. And there's some interesting proposals out. We'll see if they come back or not. Clients want to put the money into them. If nothing happens in the short term, I'll go mow the lawn. If not,
it's a nice position. It's a nice position to be in, though, isn't it? I mean, you're at the top of your game. There's no question, and you can sort of say yes and no to projects. It must be good.
No, not so.
You
tough
never say no.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of not saying no, the original question, Mark, the best design of anything. No, it doesn't have to be a boat. It can be anything.
The Dyson lawnmower.
The problem is that there's so many things that you could answer. I happen to really revere an airplane designer called Bert Rutan. So there's some of Rutan's airplane designs that are just fantastic, and I would suggest. But in a way, I think simplicity is always super appealing to me. And so there's an object called a gumbock. Are you familiar with
No.
Gumbock.
GOMBOC.
Oh, Googling now.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a geometric shape.
Yeah, we're all Googling gumbock.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
which has
I've heard about this.
Gumbock.
Oh yeah.
It has only an unstable position and a stable position. It's a very unique shape.
Gumbock.
And it's actually very beautiful. It's a beautiful little object. And it's Dan Bernasconi called his dynamic software after. I think originally because his catamarans only had one stable way up, or two at least.
Oh, I see. This is just a class of convex three-dimensional homogeneous bodies called monostatic, which it's pretty basic, really, isn't it?
It is pretty straightforward, but it's a really cool little shape, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Sorry, I had to go down that path.
Yeah.
I'd love that the statue in Budapest, that someone just pushes it over and it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Love it.
They have to bolt it down.
Oh, dear.
Well, there you go.
Well, I think we're out of time, mate. There was the one question we didn't ask about Flying Nikka that we should have asked, and we give BP grief all the time about his Far X2, and we throw this question at him all the time, and he dodges like a, like you've ever seen.
How's it rate?
Yeah. What's its rating? How does it rate?
I don't know. They get an ORC measurement this week or next couple of days, and so ORC will produce a cert hopefully in a week or so. IRC, oh mate,
probably
this is a long time. It's easy, like sailboats.
Yep.
You know what you have to do for a rating, what it weighs, how much wetted surface, how much sail area, how long it is, all those factors, and we've learned how they interrelate, and you get a rating. With flying boats, what's left in the water to rate?
To rate, yeah.
Nothing other than a wing.
This is opening up a new question, isn't it? Is how do we rate these boats? Not where is the actual number going to come from?
Just ask the digger on the back; he'll tell you.
But that's IRC's position, I think, at the minute internally is these are not rateable things in their essence. They're so simple once they lift off and you're just flying on the wing. It's coming down to very simple stuff about how efficient the wing design is, coefficients of lift, the actual surface finish. It's not rating rule territory traditionally. And
sorry, Mark, I spoke over. You finished, mate. I didn't want to.
If you're going to do it, I think you're going to probably have to start at least just in its own little ecosystem. Only flying boats against flying boats, and let's see what happens. But there's so many different types of flying boats. The sliding foil boats like IMOCAs reach pretty well, but you don't have real-time control over the foil incidents or rake and so they're much more limited compared to the pivoting wing solution that we have. How do you make all that? Try and make them race against each other.
It's hard. It opens up a really big question, doesn't it?
But what I like about foiling boats, and you're a proponent of one design boats, you've had a lot of success in the one design space, is if you went one design with a foiling boat, you don't get it's not going to become obsolete very quickly, because really the hull is just, it's whatever, it's the foil, and you can update foils. While they're expensive, they're a lot cheaper than updating a boat. So you could go one design in a foiling class and then just every 5 years update foils.
I think there's another reason why you want to go that route, which is I don't see any race organizer ever letting a foiling boat into the same patch of water as conventional displacement boats. I think a lot of those displacement owners would just say, I'm sorry, we're not going to start in your race if we're on the same start line as one of those. And so the health and safety implications of these things, I think, also force you into a one design setting. Everybody on the boat has signed a waiver accepting that they're doing a very high risk sport and that anything that happens is their own lookout. And then they can go play in their own little world. So I think a lot of things push you into that one design solution.
This is so much fun, isn't it? Talking to designers, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I could go on for a while.
Yeah. Mate, we've chewed up a lot of your time. We've gone well over, but I think we may have to call it. We might just come back to you. I'd love to come back to you once that 41's out.
I'd love to come back. Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Ireland in August anyway, so we'll just hook up and have beers.
Oh, there you go.
Let's make a point. See you for a beer.
All right. Twist my arm.
If you ever see a bloke that looks like Jim Courier or got a massive head, wave him down.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I love it. Cool.
Actually, in Ireland, that's few and far between.
Yeah.
What? Red hair, red massive head.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Mate, absolute pleasure from our end. We loved it. Absolutely loved it. Knew we would. I should actually give it a plug. We're tight with Matt Shen on Planet Sail. We're very tight with Matt. And there's another discussion with you and Matt. He did a great his video that comes out every month and Flying Nikka, and there's some good footage there of the Flying Nikka and some more of your workshop. So people can actually see some of the jokes we made about your workshop. You're actually visually there. So we'll give that plug. But, yeah, mate, thanks for making time for us. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah,
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks.
Good on you, mate. Good luck for the future.
What a champion bloke, Jordan.
Yes. He was. It was. I loved that conversation. I'll be honest. I really did. I reckon we could have gone for days. And he seemed to love it too. So that was great. He's a good guy. I got to say, Bossy, can you imagine, right, being a designer? Like you get to create. You know, you and I got to muck around and come up with ideas, but we didn't actually draw it or do it. But to actually create it, get it down on paper, and then see it being built. Yeah,
to have that skill set. Yeah. To turn that 3D thing in your head into something on paper that then is designed and actually built that's a skill in itself.
But they, just cool.
Something to be said for that Southampton Institute as well.
Oh, for sure, mate. It's like
they pumped out just the breeding ground. Yeah. I'm not talking about the Rhino Room at 1 a.m. in Southampton, but the shit, I'd love to see the list of names out of there.
You know what we should do? We should go to those guys because they all went there together and find out who the lecturer was that was the one that made it and get the lecturer on and find out, you know, because there's obviously...
Who was the favourite?
Yeah, who was the guy or the woman?
Who was the bloke lurking off all the time?
Oh, yeah. There's obviously somebody there that's giving them they're getting a great education out of it. I mean, if you haven't been there, you know, it's pretty non-distinct sort of building, isn't it? You wouldn't know. There's not much there, really. You know.
No, exactly. So
it's just a brown building in the middle of a cold town.
We've all been to Southampton.
Cool. Well, yeah, no, that was good. We'll probably get him back at some stage when something interesting's happening, like non-stop interesting things. But, thanks, mate, for coming on. Looking forward to it. Shall we move on?
We shall.
Club events. What do I want to do? The Australian sports boats. Last year, we gave the sports boats last year quite the run-up. And then this year they had their nationals without really hearing too much about it. They sort of reached out to it after we'd published the show. But they've had their nationals, and I just wanted to say, because Luke Ratcliffe had the win in the reheat, which is good for Lukey. Andy York in second, and then it was a tie for third with Monkey Business and was it Tickety Boo? So a couple of Shaw 650s. So reheat was the what do they call them? The REO 7.2, I think, and the REO, which is the Andrew York sort of got a blown up. Brian Bennett, who designed the VX, designed the reheat, which was the first
Viper VX reheat.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then the REO Speedwagon now, which is the bigger version. So, they're good boats, but good fun. Sports boats still kicking it on.
Which reminds me, slightly off topic.
Yeah.
But I saw a photo earlier in the week from Innovation Composites.
Yep.
Of which looks like a blown up VX.
Oh.
So I'm not sure what boat it was, though.
It's not the JPK they're building.
No. It was a different hull shape.
Okay.
It looked very sports boatish, but quite large as well, unless it was just the scale didn't quite work out.
Well, if they want to share, they'll reach out. I know they listen to the show. So, okay. Well, that's interesting. Other thing that we're a bit behind, we got it's happening today. If you don't get the notices to us early, people, we can't get it in front. But the Noosa Gaff Rig Regatta, so that's going on today. So it'll have happened by the time this gets to air. But old boats turning up with gaff rigs. So in my mind, it's like 200 Opties turned up. And
what are the rules? 200 Opties, 50 herons,
and a mirror.
But a couple of 12-foot cadet dinghies.
Yeah, no, somebody sent a photo. We got a photo of a couple of the boats going in. There's some nice-looking old, really well-maintained trailer sailors and stuff. So, it'll be fun. Noosa River, there's not much you can do on Noosa River. It's straight up and down, so and dodge all the moored boats. But it'll be a ton of fun. Good crew up there. They've invested plenty in Sailors Lager in the past, so we're big fans of that crew.
Here.
Now, slightly different one, boss. An event coming up at the end of August, start of September in Hungary, the World Sprint Kayak Championships.
How did you perform in a kayak back in the day, Jordan?
I don't know.
Were you pretty handy?
We paddle skis, but the reason I'm publishing it, there's a bit of bias here. And when it's our show, we can do a little bit of bias.
We can do what the hell we want.
That's right. I'd just like to say I've got a 19-year-old nephew by the name of Will Spencer, and he's just been named in the Australian under-23 team, that's the under-23 world champs coming up in Hungary. So we're all keeping our eye out for young Will Spencer to do well. And if you are in Hungary, go and say good day to the young fella. He's not diminutive. He's a substantial piece of meat, like his uncle.
How's the head size? The CG in the kayak a little high, or
yeah, I've never thought about that. I've never measured his head. We should actually have a look. But he's a great kid.
He's in Adelaide, right? So
down your
I might nip around and get the old meter roll out and wrap it around his scone.
Okay.
I'll be needing more than the 600 mil roll if it runs in the family.
Anyway, a little bit of bias there, but I'm super proud of the young fella. He's worked hard, and he got there at 19 in the under-23. So
bravo.
Bravo.
Well done, Will.
And a strength sport, so, not one for intellect, so that's good. That works right into his favour. That's harsh.
Good work,
Will. Jack Lloyd, Listener of the Week. We've got a few nominations here.
Well, apart from our normal Australia Post and Emirates Team New Zealand, plenty of talk still around the land speed record, something keeping all the designers busy. By the way, and I've mentioned it before, but if you missed the last little call out, Team New Zealand, don't be going to Lake Gardner right now.
Yeah.
She is full.
Certainly not with a land yacht.
Full to the brim.
Love it. Could be a while before it dries hard enough. Ashby will be fine. He'll just put some floats on and just smoke it down there.
Exactly. But maybe speaking of Australia Post, do we have a new Australia Post?
We do. I think so.
Godfred. or as his mates call him, Fred.
Fred Henning.
So Fred Henning.
And we say this with love, mate.
Absolutely love. We do love all the information coming in, all the banter.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there, cheers at barkarati.com. Just send us plenty of info.
And we get a lot of emails, but Godfred's he's given us quite a few this week, and he's quite a regular contributor. So we're calling him,
and he's a big merch purchaser.
Yeah.
So if he does win, listener of the week,
can we just?
He may not need the merch pack.
Maybe we should just give him a nickname, the Postman.
Fred.
If we just call him the Postman,
because he always delivers.
I love it. Surprise email this week, though.
Yes.
Paul Kayard, head of US Sailing, has sent us a note saying that it is actually going to be mandatory for the sailors to grow moustaches in the US
The US sailing team.
by the next Olympics, apparently. So I love that. Buying right in on that. So good work. So if you want to make it into the US sailing team, hirsute.
Start growing a mo.
Start growing a mo. That's the words.
Yeah.
The other one is a good one. Shall I bring this in now? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You do it.
Well, this is something it's not the first time this has come up, but it's given us the push that we need to get off our ass and do it. Is a big listener of the show, fan of the show. We've mentioned him a few times, Mark Disney, Sharky Mark Dizzes, or Disney, as they call him, wrote in, gents, I've just realised that you've been missing a trip for around 3 years, by the way. 3-year anniversary coming up in about 2 weeks. Bar Karate battle flags need to be in the merch shop. Don't just flirt with the idea. Go big. They'll fly off the shelf. Good pun, by the way. Flags are meant to fly. Just one thing, though. One tiny detail. This is for you, Jordan. Make sure the logo's in the middle. Dizzers, that's a fantastic little prod. And I'm gonna do something about that. Shout out to owner of the exact printer that we'll be using to make this happen. One David Snowd, currently flying back from the UK at the minute.
Good on you, son.
Having been over there conducting a bit of business. But yeah, absolutely love it.
Decent size ones, so that was the other thing. So fair,
make them big,
not tiny little ones, but proper big size ones. So yeah,
absolutely.
He was also responsible. Dizzes was sending that link we published for. We talked with great fondness about our New Zealand friends the other week and talked about their love of a mullet.
The mullet,
and
correct.
Then he sent Mark sent us a link to dogs with mullets, which is just somebody's taken photos of lots of dogs with mullets, so we put that on the Facebook page if you haven't seen it.
Only thing missing is driving a VP Commodore with their arm out the window.
And then the other one we got was from Ben Day, who's another guy that loves to send us stuff, and he was showing a photo of ginger. You know, you can get crushed ginger, in bottles.
The root ginger.
Yeah. So, but instead of just buying the ginger like out of the ground, it's all mashed up and put into a bottle. In the supermarket near where he lives, there's a brand there called Easy Ginger, and he was just thinking, for all the hothead redheads out there, they've got the Easy Ginger. Just settle down.
That might be our little bit of the mantra for the team, for the Ginger Challenge. Easy Gingers. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Just because it'll be so easy how they win, or they got to stay calm.
That's right. Well, yeah, we'll see.
All right. Beauty. Well, we're on fire. Ole, ole. I thought I did that.
Yeah, I like it.
It's hot time with Bice.
Oh, we didn't mention we're for the listener. This is recorded on the late Sunday arvo. Our partner in crime, Mr. Brett Perry, is currently into country, and he's moved on from. He was in Indonesia
Singapore,
earlier in the week.
yeah.
He's now in the US putting X2 hole number 2 together.
Yeah.
And it's currently about midnight for him. So he did say he can do it in his morning, which would have been midnight for us.
Yeah.
And we just say, stiff shit, we're moving on. All right. So I'm not sure how this is going to work, though. But my question to you two guys, it was going to be how observant you have been throughout the week.
Not at all this week.
So, number one, I want to talk about the TP52 regatta in Bayona. We've seen the winner crowned, not without some, it's not necessarily controversy because it's all yachting, but did you pick up on anything there, Jordan?
I do remember, now that you mention it, I watched the video. So they were, Quantum was down at the pin, weren't they? And they were just slightly over, so they went back.
Last race, in the last
race, that's right. And then the last race got blown off or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was for light winds, but it
so
wasn't.
they were 7 points ahead. Well, it took a while to get through the
That's
video.
right. They had to finish here.
Six minutes of people picking up plastic on the beach, which we all love and support and stuff, but not enough yachting in the vid. But basically, they were over. The last race, they were 7 points ahead. Currently, they were in last position, so they would have lost the regatta at that point in time with the last race. And then it got blown off, massive wind shift at the Lure Gate. They came out victorious. Quantum wins the regatta. Platoon in second, Phoenix in third.
Who would have won? Do you remember who would have, if they hadn't?
Platoon.
Looking the goods?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think there was a big enough gap that it might have been one of those two.
Yeah.
Platoon or Phoenix. So.
Yeah. Interesting. There's always controversy in sport.
Imagine the little chit-chat behind the scene on that one. And I wonder how big the wind shift was. Are we talking big numbers or just enough to be on the edge?
Are you saying that the PRO's just bought a new house?
Basically, and it's full of Amway products. No, not of course. Yachting's a gentleman's sport.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
The Ocean Race have made an announcement this week in 2030 that they are going to achieve a certain goal. Did you pick up on anything?
No,
there?
I didn't even see that. I missed that one completely. 2030. So what, we're going in 23, aren't we? Oh, no, we're going at the end of this year, aren't we? Anyway, 8 years' time.
So by 2030, they want to have 50-50 gender split for the race going forward. I don't mind all that, and we're obviously big proponents. We love this kind of that side of things. But let's just worry about this race going first.
Yeah. You know what that is, boss?
Talk to me.
I've just worked it out. It's double-handed from 2030.
Ooh, 2030 onwards.
Yeah, Volvo Ocean Race, double-handed.
The Ocean Race, yeah.
The Ocean Race, yeah.
You've called it.
It's gone double-handed. That's the only way to make it work. Oh.
Yeah.
God, it actually would be a pretty cool event, a double-hand around the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, say 40-footers.
A few less stops. It'll be, they've done it before, right? The what was it called? The Bass
World Race.
The World. So,
Buckle.
And speaking of which, our friends on 11th Hour are currently a couple of days out of Newport on their way back across the pond doing all their thing. I noticed they are a starter for the Bermuda race as well. So I'll be interested to see how that goes, how the 60 really does line up against these guys. Guys
awesome
and girls.
I'd love to see, because they're going to a point along, they can't really pick their direction. Just love to see the wind line up perfectly and just see that thing smoke.
Send it. Yeah. Absolutely.
It'd be unreal.
That would be cool.
Very cool.
All right, finally, we had John Schaefer on, Ministry of Sail.
Yep.
A couple of weeks ago, talking about the handbook
Rescue
that he's put out.
Swimmer.
And he generously offered for people that emailed him that he will send them a electronic copy of the
For
book.
the first 100.
First 100.
Yeah, that didn't take long, apparently.
So the question was, how many did he get rid of? Answer, 100.
Yeah.
How long did it take? Stuffle. Only a couple of days.
Yeah.
So that was encouraging, actually, from our point of view, to know how engaged the listeners got in that particular discussion.
Yeah, and went so many different locations around the world as too. He sent us a list of all the different countries and stuff. So just from the elements of building a framework of knowledge, it was a good outcome. So, yeah, very happy for the bloke.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone that gets rescued.
Here. And I actually ran into one of the guys down who sat the CYC here, and he listened to it and he thought, he'll reach out to John. But in the end, he actually purchased the book. So he's actually going to have it as a in hand, so he can then share it amongst his crewmates as well. So
great.
Good result.
Great result. Yeah. Maybe we should start doing some advertising on the show. People will kill us if we did some advertising. We've got to pay some bills somehow. But anyway, obviously it's good. The whole purpose of bar karate, we've said a million times, is to make sailing better, more people into sailing, and if more people survive, because of that, that'd be unreal. It'd be great. Yeah.
And then, okay, I've got one last one here.
Yeah.
When did the bar karate curse not come into fruition?
Oh, I know where you're going.
Generally, after we do speak to someone or around that, they see relatively good success.
Yeah, they win. People win
in yacht racing. But unfortunately, our good friend Xavier Dyer, who is looking to circumnavigate around Australia, has had to pull out 1 week into the journey.
Yeah, poor bugger. So what happened? From what I understand, he sent me a note. He got hit from behind with a wave, and it went down the hatch and took out all his electrics. And he was a bit offshore at the time.
Yeah.
And so he had to hand steer for 3 days just to get it back to the coast. So they couldn't fix anything, so he had to pull out. Devastating, because so early into it. But I guess if it was easy, everyone would do it. But breaking records is not easy, which shows you how hard it can be, I guess.
No.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I was keeping a bit of an eye on him and looking at the weather overlay, and he was hard up against it off the coast of Fraser Island for a minute there, and then the wind came behind him, and I'm guessing that's where it all kind of
got ugly,
took off, and he basically survived those 3 days hand steering, eating about 3 Byron Bay cookies, I believe.
That's right. That's exactly.
Not Byron Bay cookies that you and I would indulge in, Jordan, but normal cookies.
You idiot. Oh, dear. Anyway, because you had Xavier, right, and then we just had Lisa Blair doing the round Antarctica, and it made me
spectacular.
It made me think, boss. I'm thinking of doing my own record circumnavigation because everyone's having a go, and I reckon there's an avenue that people haven't thought of.
There you go.
It's a tough one. What I'm thinking is that everyone sort of tries to do it the quickest, or the furthest, or the single-handed, or the unassisted. What I reckon would be the cool thing would be to do a circumnavigation having the most fun, the most relaxed circumnavigation, drinking the most beers, meeting the most people, and set that as my goals because, all these bloody circumnavigations sound tough. I'd like to try and do the easiest possible circumnavigation.
And what would that involve?
Well, just get a really nice cruising boat, really luxurious one, stock it up full of good food and drink, and then just wait for the perfect weather conditions and then set sail And then, if there's surf there, I'll take my time, do some surfing. If it's, if I meet some cool people, I'll hang around and chat to them for a week, and then just take my sweet time and enjoy it. I think that setting a record for that, having the most fun doing a circumnavigation is yet to be put in the record books. And I'd like it to be there because that's the sort of thing we should encourage. Circumnavigation with the person having the most fun.
I think we could call it the Barclay algorithm to basically to record the fun factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it will be an accumulation of points over the many, many years that it's going to take.
Yeah.
It's basically a never-ending story.
The thing to make it work, Bice, is we'd need to appoint a few auditors, special experts in the field for people to regularly join in and just see what's going on and then make a valued assessment that way. So the skill would be having really professional auditors to come along and check and then authorise the records that way. Can you think of anybody?
Well, first of all, it's going to be something similar to the IRC rule. No one actually knows the rules.
Oh, yes.
And different things get different points.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And depending on the time of day when the auditors do the assessment and are totally open to bribes,
it could be it.
Is it going to be?
Yeah.
Our good selves.
Well, obviously. I mean,
good.
It's the only fair way, really, isn't it? Because at least we know that we've got integrity. You could have people that could be corrupted. That we don't want to risk that. So it's about integrity. So I guess we'll just appoint ourselves. Not. Yeah.
Here.
Rightio. What else? I guess we have to talk. We had a conversation last week. Where was it last week or the week before? We talked about Peter Briggs and his boat, the Hitchhiker, which he's had for 40 years. And we asked, what boat would you hang on to for 40 years? Unfortunately, this week Peter Briggs passed away, so he kept his boat for a lifetime. But we just wanted to pass on our condolences for that. Iconic Australian sailor. But he's had his time, and it's a sad story. But now the Hitchhiker will find a second owner for the first time in 40 years. It's quite incredible. So there you go. Yep.
You may choose to delete this comment. So if the listeners are hearing it, you've chosen not to. Shit, the Barclay curse hasn't
this week. Yes,
the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. It's when it comes in, it's always a win, but when it changes, because the yin and yang, it's got to be balanced. It changes hard. So no, that's not good.
Yeah, changes hard.
Lasers. The Lasers World's finished. Congratulations to Jean-Baptiste Bernaz, the Frenchman, crown champion. Fantastic effort. Super hard class to win in. Pavlos Kontidis into second, I think. Actually, was it Pavlos in second? I just got to go and check the result. Yeah, Pavlos, and then Philippe Jurasic into third. So fantastic, hey? Bit of laser sailing. So, the people that can endure pain. Right, what else? You got anything else, my friend?
No, that's it for the week. You will be pleased to know, though, mate of ours, good mate of mine, Caelan Howard, the new boat.
Oh, yep.
His new power vessel is currently in town, being launched in Adelaide tomorrow. And you'll love this name, Rover.
Rover.
The Rover of the Seas.
Oh, I get it. Because for those who don't know.
Yeah. I've already got out the oil soak-up pads. Don't worry about it.
In South Australia, Bossy's got a little mate called Caelan Howard, and they've got little matching Land Rovers, Defenders, a newish one and an oldish one. They got their little matching power boats now, And they've got matching underwear. I think they're just living the dream. You two love each other, don't you?
Oh, matchy.
It's good to see a friendship, mate, like that. I'm just jealous. That's all. You do good friendships, Bice. That's what I will say for you, mate. You do good friendships. All right. I think our week is done.
The best ships of all are friendships.
Yes.
It is. Farewell, my friend.
All right.
We shall chat again soon.
All right, bud.
See you, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Keep the banter up.